Hello, welcome to a second chance. My name is Philip Jones. Today I'm my co-host, Mr. Carl Cook, and we have an awesome guest with us today, Sarah Miller, who is the CEO and founder of SODA, which stands for Student Organ Donation Advocate. Sarah, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Mr. Cook. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful, man. Thank you for asking.
Oh yeah, definitely appreciate you being on. So like I told you before, Sarah's gonna come straight to you, so be ready. So the floor is yours. You tell your story how you want to tell it, and then we'll ask you the questions afterwards. So the floor is yours.
Thank you both, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I admire the amazing work that you both do in the community. So it's fun to be here and tell my story. Um, I live in Denver, Colorado. I just actually heard fireworks in the background as we prepare for the All-Star game because I live pretty close to Coors Field. But what I want to tell you about is how I became passionate about organ donation at a much younger age than is typical. So back in 2009, I was 12 years old, living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I grew up, and my family was really close. We had three girls in the family: my younger sister, Rachel, my older sister, Laura, and things seemed pretty normal. We went on a vacation over the holidays, came back, and my older sister, Laura, started to experience headaches. We didn't expect much of that. It's pretty common for a 14-year-old girl to have headaches. There's a lot of reasons. We thought maybe it was the chlorine in the high school pool or just the stress of being a freshman in high school. But those headaches kept getting worse, and we took them seriously. My mom took her to the doctor, and she, one morning, had a seizure out of the blue. So we called an ambulance, and she went to the hospital, where they really quickly realized that my seemingly healthy older sister, Laura, actually had a brain tumor. And over the course of the next 3 days, her condition went from bad to worse. And on the Saturday, about 3 or 4 days after she was admitted to the hospital, the first time we had heard that she was sick, she was declared brain dead. And so you can probably sense from this story that in many ways it was more like a car crash than cancer, because it all happened so quickly. And so it was just the worst time of my life and for my family as well. But on that Saturday, February 21st of 2009, my family was approached to see if my sister would be an organ donor because she was under 18. She was 14 at the time. And I didn't know much about organ donation at the time. It was really one of the first times I had heard about it, unfortunately, but I saw that there could be a glimmer of hope that could come from a tragedy, and I latched onto the idea that my sister could help somebody in need. Luckily, I had a good social worker that kind of told me why we should care about it as well, and so that really made a big impact in my decision. So I told my parents that I wanted Laura to be an organ donor, and I think in this moment they didn't want to make their 12-year-old daughter mad. So they started talking around, figuring out if our religion supports it, if they support it. And they realized that across the board, organ donation is a really positive way to make an impact. And so a few hours after I told them that I wanted her to be an organ donor, they signed the papers and said that she would be. That was kind of all I knew at the time. I wasn't sure that her organs would actually save somebody. There's never a guarantee. But around 6 months later, we got a letter in the mail, and my mom jokes that she thought it was like a stage letter, where you get a donation and it says, to the people, thank you so much for your donation. But it was actually the woman that received my sister's liver. Lots of information, identifying information, was crossed out in the letter. And that was really a hopeful moment for us, because it was the first time that we really saw that my sister made an impact, even through this really horrible tragedy. So that's kind of how I became interested. Is I saw firsthand that organ donation saves lives. And I realized that the donor family, which is what I was part of, also gained so much from organ donation. There's this misconception in the organ donation community that it's just the recipients that receive an organ and receive life. But for us as a donor family, we felt so much hope because my sister was an organ donor, and it really helped us heal in this hard time. And so that's how I initially became interested in organ donation. It started with me telling my story, and that's actually the advice I give to so many students that are part of the work we do at SODA today, is just tell your story. Tell people what it was like for you, why you care about donation, because so many people don't think about it on a daily basis. So many people have never heard about it. They don't know that it's real, that it impacts so many people. So that's what happened as I started to tell my story. I started off by going to driver's ed classes anywhere that they would allow me to speak in Milwaukee. And so it didn't matter how close or far, if they gave me an invitation to speak once I reached out, I was there ready to speak to my peers. And that was my first exposure to the fact that students educating other students is really effective when it comes to organ donation advocacy. And so that planted a seed, which you'll see comes through later in the story as well. But when I went to college at Washington University in St. Louis, I immediately knew that I wanted to devote my time and extracurricular passion to promoting organ donation. But I was disappointed to see that there were no existing groups on campus, and I wasn't able to identify a national organization that could support me in starting a chapter. And so we created Student Organ Donation Advocates. It was just a single chapter at the time. And we started from scratch. We created a logo, a mission, a vision, an email address, figured out how do we buy pizza so that we can attract students to our events. And it just was one chapter. So we led that for a few years, a few other passionate students and I. And we realized that we were striking a chord, that there were other students across the country who, one, wanted to get involved because they were already passionate, but there were also so many students who were ready to become educated, to learn about it because they just hadn't had exposure in the past. And so once we came across that realization that there's a need for this type of work, we said, let's expand, let's reach more people with the work we do. And we, at the beginning, we called ourselves SODA National. We split up our SODA at WashU team into the SODA WashU team and then the SODA National team. And we laughed because we weren't national at the time. We were just SODA at WashU seeking to be bigger. But that's how you start, right? You have to just believe that it's going to work, and you don't know exactly the path it will take. But we believed we would expand, and so SODA National it was. So SODA National was born. We bought a website. We got a small grant from a foundation to do so, but it was really scrappy. We were trying to figure out how do we get in touch with these students that we know exist, but we don't yet know how to reach them. And I believe that a big reason we've been able to expand to this 35 and counting chapters that we have today is because we work closely with organ procurement organizations. And I have a feeling both of you know, but for anyone watching that's not familiar, organ procurement organizations are organizations all across the United States that do two primary things. First, they help allocate organs, and second, they help advocate for organ donation. And what's really unique is that we can work with the volunteer coordinators or the community outreach team at these local organ procurement organizations, which are throughout the entire country, to help students get involved. And so these OPOs, organ procurement organizations, have become tremendous partners as we work to grow, because they are experts in organ donation and we're experts in students. And by pairing our shared expertise together, we're able to really reach more students and make more of an impact together, achieving both of our missions. So we started to expand through our work with OPOs. We started a few chapters in the Midwest, which was convenient because that's where I was going to school in St. Louis. It's where I grew up, Milwaukee. And then people started to hear about us slowly through these OPOs, through Google, through Instagram. And over the past few years, we've been able to expand quite a bit more. We I think it was the turn of this year, we had 21 chapters, and today we have 37. So it's been a period of tremendous growth for us at SOTA, even in the pandemic. We weren't sure how the pandemic would hit us, but what we realized is that students are passionate about organ donation with or without a pandemic, and they have passion that they want to dedicate to a cause that means so much to them. And so it doesn't matter what's happening around, people are so interested in making a difference and looking for tools to do so. At SOTA, our goal is to remove barriers for students. Everything we do is centered around how can we make it easier for a student to do the important work of organ donation advocacy. What that means is buying them pizza when they have events, helping make sure that they have ideas for events and inspiration, connecting them with amazing speakers like you guys in partnership with OPOs that they work with, and of course, making sure they are in good touch with that OPO. So lots of ways we connect them. We even connect them to each other, the students, on a Slack network, which is really fun to see so many passionate leaders across the country who otherwise wouldn't know each other get to meet and share, again, that passion that they have. So that's a little bit more about what we do. There's a few exciting things that are happening right now at SOTA. I'll just highlight a few of them. One of them is that we recently hired our first employee. This was a really big accomplishment for us after many years of fundraising. And so we're really proud to have Nicole on board as our program manager. And it's also helping us take our programming to the next level. And so 2 programs that we're supporting right now is, first, we're beginning to support students at historically Black colleges and universities. There's a really big need for organ donation in the African American community. And so doing our part to make sure we can support student advocates. And then the second part is we're launching this events program. So up till today, if a student wanted to get involved, we had one main option for them, which was start a chapter. But some students are really involved with other groups. Maybe they're involved with an honor society or a fraternity, or they swim every day right after school. And so it's not always possible to start a chapter, but what we're beginning this coming semester, and I think this might be the first time I'm publicly sharing it, but what we're beginning this semester is, if you want to host an event, whether it's through SOTA or not, we will support you with funding, with mentoring, with tools. We will make it easy for you to do that important work. So I'll pause there and see if you have any questions.
Mr. Cook, you have any questions?
Yes, I wanted to know. You guys do wonderful work. Let me just start right there. That's pretty amazing, Sarah. You guys do all this, and to get 37 chapters. That's really awesome. The first question I wanted to know was, how many people do you average in each chapter? Like, what would you say?
It really varies from chapter to chapter. We have some chapters that have, well, I'll start with this. Every chapter has 3 students minimum. That's what's required to start. But it's usually quite a bit bigger than that. You know, on the small end might be 10 students that are involved, and on the larger end could be 50 to 100. Some chapters are really large and attract a really big following. But it also depends on the size of the campus and what types of activities they're doing. So we see a pretty big range across our chapters.
Nice. And you guys work with like Donate Life and all of those in the different cities and stuff like that. Tell them who you are and everything. And they're powerful too. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, we love working with Donate Life partners and organ procurement organizations because we're doing the same work. And so if we can realize the synergies, we're all going to be much more effective. And so that's a really key part of what we do.
Right. And let me just say what I do, you know, my background, the HBCU students is big because of high blood pressure and diabetes. I'm just going to say that's really, really important, and that runs high in the Black community. So that's good to get HBCUs on point. And I'm glad they're showing initiative in that. So how did you guys get with it, though? Let me just ask that.
So I missed the last question. What was that?
I said, with the HBCUs, how did you get involved with them? Because I think that's a wonderful thing with high blood pressure and diabetes running in our communities at a very rapid rate. How did you get in contact with them?
Yeah, so it started by us knowing that there was this need within the community, and that's what got us inspired to say, what can we do leveraging our unique passion and expertise. We are just awarding scholarships right now to students that have demonstrated extraordinary interest at HBCUs in organ donation. So we're giving 6 scholarships away. We just notified the winners very recently, and so that's a really exciting accomplishment, and we're going to be working with those students to see if they're interested in starting a chapter. But then continuing to work with organ procurement organizations like we do for our other outreach to say, how can we support you in your goals as we do outreach together? And so partnering with the OPOs is really critical. And then tacking on this events program where you don't need to start a SOTA chapter to get involved and make a difference. That's a really big part of what we're doing so that any student, regardless of their time commitment and other extracurriculars, can devote a few hours here and there to making a difference.
The students that graduate, are they still involved with your with the organization and everything?
Yeah, we do. We really love keeping in touch with the leaders that graduate. One of the most important pieces of support we offer our chapters is mentoring, because when you're in high school or college, it's really important that you have someone you can go to that's been through what you're going through. And so every SOTA chapter has the opportunity to talk with a former student leader to answer their questions. And so Adriana was our student outreach coordinator this past year. She was a tremendous sounding board for our chapters, and it was a great way for them to get advice and to do more effective work, but also a really meaningful way for our team as well to give back and help newer students that are getting involved. And we're also lucky to have an advisory board that supports us with the work we do. It takes a lot of creativity and teamwork to start new chapters and to support them. And so we're lucky to be able to keep many leaders engaged in that way.
I'm done with my questions. Go ahead.
Oh, you good, Cook? Okay. I do have one question before I let you continue. With your numbers that you have in your multiple chapters, have you actually ever found yourself with somebody in your chapter that's dealt with organ failure or had a transplant?
Yeah. When I got involved with SOTA, I thought that most people that started a chapter would be like me, part of an organ donor or recipient family. But what I learned is that there's so many people that are passionate about organ donation for a variety of reasons. And so we have a leader, Nicole, who is on our advisory board now, but started one of our chapters at Quinnipiac University. And she has cystic fibrosis and received a lung transplant. And so nice. She's very connected to the cause and such a passionate advocate for donation. And we have other leaders that have been donors themselves. We have a leader that donated a lobe of her liver to her mom. And other leaders who have no personal connection, but heard about it in driver's ed and decided that they were going to devote their passion to this cause. And for future doctors as well in our ranks who see the importance of medicine and transplantation and want to learn more about it and before they enter the medical field. So there's probably more reasons I'm missing, but it's just amazing to hear about why people are passionate and to provide them the tools to make it easier for them to make a difference.
Awesome. You brought something up that I was going to touch on later, but how did you, what went through your mind when you came up with, I'm going to go to driver's ed and to be able to speak to my peers? Like, how did that come to your mind? Like, was it like a process? Were you saying that you were going to start somewhere else, but then all of a sudden it just kind of came to you? Like, what went through, what kind of process did you go through to come up with that? That's creative.
Thank you. I'm in Wisconsin, and hopefully I'm quoting this correctly, but there is mandatory education about organ donation in driver's ed. And so I was familiar that there was already this mandate. And so for the driver's ed teacher, if they could have an hopefully engaging speaker talk with the students, it would be better than some stock video. And so I was trying to leverage the existing structure of the courses, knowing that they had to teach about driver's ed, and then providing that personal story, which again is probably the most effective way to advocate for organ donation, is through those stories. And so that's how I got involved. I also enjoyed speaking at school when I could, to my youth group, but there's tons of driver's ed classes, and so that was one great way to get started.
Wow, that's interesting. I've never heard of that. Cook, have you heard of that type of thing?
That's awesome. That was creative, man.
Right. Yeah, that's new to me. I've never heard of that. Definitely have to check into that. Because I don't think a lot of people know about that, honestly. Because, like I said, that's definitely creative for you to take that and use it to your advantage to be able to speak and advocate for organ donations, which is advocates for organ donation is a big need for us, I think. Because us as patients can't do it by ourselves. We need help. Just like we can't go through the illness by ourselves, we can't go through the fact of trying to find a living donor by ourselves. We need, other people in our families and friends to be able to advocate and put the word out for us as well in their other ventures and maybe businesses or schools or anything like that. So that's definitely big time to use that to your advantage. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you continue your story. I know you had paused to take questions, so the floor is yours again.
Right, I think I got through most of it. I'm trying to think if there's any details I missed, actually. I can share a little bit more about how to get involved. There's so many ways that students can make a difference as part of SOTA. Like I mentioned, if you have a few hours here and there, hosting an event is an awesome way to make a difference, and we'll be launching that more publicly in the coming weeks. If you're more involved already and ready to devote more hours, starting a chapter is a great option. And we love engaging with the organ donation community on social media. We have both a Facebook and Instagram page. It seems like all the students these days are on Instagram, so that seems to be where we do a majority of our content and engagement. So that's a little bit more. We also are always looking to grow. And so if you know a student or if you're interested in making a financial donation, our doors are always open. But that's just a little bit more about how to get involved. And I think that wraps up my story.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna go to a commercial, and then we'll ask you the rest of our questions when we come back.
Thank you.
Welcome back to A Second Chance. I am Philip Jones. I'm Brother Sparrow Cook, and we are here with Sarah Miller. So, Mr. Cook, you have any questions, or you want to start it off with the questions again?
Yeah, I have more questions. I'm really intrigued with what they do, man. I think this is awesome. This is pretty amazing. So what entail like your do you first of all, do you guys have donor drives on the campus?
We do. Our chapters have two goals. The first is education, and the second is registration. And so we have events that are focused on one or the other or both, but we see them as key components, and they kind of need to go together.
Okay, good. Are they just always on campus, or are they at different places and stuff? Or?
We center our work around the campus because we encourage our chapters to become approved through their student group. But we encourage students to host events wherever they see fit. So it often ends up being on campus, but they are also welcome to go into the community, whether it's a local mall, especially now that COVID is kind of subsiding and restrictions have been a lot more lenient. But virtual events have been really popular this year. So we don't restrict the events besides encouraging them to be focused on education and registration.
I think that's awesome, especially Sarah. You guys are catching people at a young age. I'm on the older side, so I think that's wonderful to catch the kids and let them know about awareness early, man. Because that's a big key right there, catching them early and planting the seed in their head at an early age. I just think that's wonderful. Let me ask you one more question. How do you guys keep up with all the chapters? You say you have 37, so I can only imagine. Your employee, the lady you talked about with the lung transplant. I know she's pretty busy.
Yeah, so it's a lot of data collection behind the scenes to keep our ship afloat, if you will. And so we use a customer relationship management software, just like a sales company would use. Okay. We keep track of what our chapter leaders are doing and what questions they have and so forth. So we have to stay really organized behind the scenes to keep track of the amazing work that our chapters are doing. And it also helps us if the organ procurement organization needs to get in touch with a chapter, maybe someone graduated, we're able to provide really updated records. But don't get me wrong, it's definitely takes a lot of work in making sure that all the processes are in place so that we can provide the best experience possible from when a student becomes interested to when they are ready to start a chapter all the way through to once the chapter is running. And there's a lot of things we need to do behind the scenes to provide outstanding support.
Okay. Go ahead, Phil.
So my question is, how do you go to these universities, or do you wait for somebody necessarily to come to you from ones that don't already have chapters and say, hey, I've been reading about your organization and we want to start a chapter? Or do you go to these universities and say, hey, this is what my organization does, we'd like to possibly start on your campus? Like, is it a two-way street, or do you just like let people come to you, or what?
Yeah, so that's actually when we got started back now 7 years ago. We started outreaching to students. We had a list of 200 students we found on LinkedIn and other Google, but we didn't find that to be a very effective route to getting people involved, because we're really not trying to find somebody off the street who cares about. What we're trying to find is someone who has a passion for organ donation. That's the student that typically starts a chapter. So we can't just kind of ask any random person to get involved. What we have found is that our favorite and primary way of starting chapters is through OPOs. So we do outreach to OPOs. OPOs do outreach to us, and we partner with them to start chapters. We've also found that people find us on Instagram. And we just got an application, I think 2 days ago, from someone who found us on Instagram. And so that's exciting for us when people hear about us, or through, we're lucky to be on this show today. So people might hear about through platforms like this and other media that we are able to do. And then something that's sort of fun for us is Google search as well has become a bigger piece. We've been able to invest in SEO, which is search engine optimization, so that if someone Google searches organ donation chapter, we should be the first people that pop up, so that for those very unique students that have a passion, they can learn about us and then get involved, and we can hopefully make it easier for them to do that advocacy work that we all know is so important.
Great, great. So let's kind of go back to Ben just a little bit. So you said you're from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. How was it growing up out there?
I enjoyed it. It's really cold in Milwaukee. And so I made my way to Denver, which most people would think is equally as cold, but it's actually quite a bit better in Denver. Winters are a lot more mild. Obviously not in the mountains, that's a different story, but yeah, I enjoyed Milwaukee. We had a wonderful community feel, but I also love living in Denver now.
Great. So to touch on something, I could have definitely missed it when you were speaking about this, but did they ever find out I guess you could say the original diagnosis for how your sister was sick and how she, had to deal with this illness? Like, did they, ever tell you like, okay, well, it started from this and escalated to that, or did they just kind of say, she has it and kind of let time go by?
Yeah, so I mentioned briefly, but my sister, we didn't know she was sick until she started to have these headaches in January of 2009. And once she was declared sick, once we knew she had cancer, it was only a few days before she was declared brain dead. And unfortunately, even after this really, trying time, we talked with doctors and geneticists and many other folks to try to understand if this is something that some particular incident caused, or kind of how it happened, which is I think what you're getting at. And there was really no understanding. What she had was called medulloblastoma, which is a rare form of childhood brain cancer. And it's kind of like winning the lottery in reverse. And so it's not very common, but it doesn't seem like there was something in particular that we're aware of that caused it.
Okay. The reason why I asked that, I'm sorry, Ms. Cook, you gonna say something?
I mean, I just want to, champion her parents for, a lot of times we hear these stories, and I mean, this was like really fast turnaround, and then you have to answer that question right there. I've seen the question answered in a not that fast of a time, but so I really have to champion your parents to make a decision like that, and that's wonderful, because the life she saved and the chain reaction, how it impacted you to carry on her legacy in this form that you're doing. So I just want to champion you guys for it. That's all I want to say. That's pretty awesome. Thank
you. My mom's actually become a really amazing advocate for donation as well. And she wrote a book about organ donation.
Okay. Nice.
It's called Permission to Thrive.
Okay.
So it's a wonderful tribute to my sister and to organ donation, and also kind of says that it's okay to do meaningful things after a tragedy happens.
Right.
And of course, in this as well, is that the hospital is not the place to have these conversations. Unfortunately, that's where my family had this conversation, but I hope it's not where others have to, because hopefully at the dinner table, when it's not a stressful scenario, people can say like, look, I support it. This is my decision. I want to save a life, but it's so stressful in the hospital. That's not the best forum. And all of us are doing so much work to get people to talk about organ donation in a more comfortable scenario, so that when something horrible does happen, which God forbid it doesn't, it's more understood what would be desired by that person.
I mean, I'm a 2-time kidney transplant recipient. And I've, talked to my family about, my wishes personally, and, I'm an organ donor as well. So, and just like you said, to have it at that, and it brought up, I was 18 when I got sick. So Phil was younger than me. So it brought up that conversation early in our life, like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then, I was the youngest out of 5. My brothers and sisters had that same conversation with their families, all because of what happened to their younger brother. So, and like you said, that makes the conversation a lot easier. And it's because we already know it's a challenging conversation just to have in the first place. And then, but having it at a setting, at the table, at least we know everybody's wishes up front. So we hope we don't get to that stage where we have to make these decisions. But if we do have a little base to go on. So you're right about that, Sarah. You're exactly right.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't think that the hospital is the right place to have this conversation either. But on the other hand, it's actually needed to happen, and the reason why that is because the reason why they come to you in the hospital at in this of course hard times, but the reason why they come to you is because they don't know what can happen in the coming time. So the doctor can always say they have a week, they have 2 weeks, they have 3 weeks, but in the end, you never really know. And so we all know, being recipients and stuff, that once that organ comes out, it has to pretty much be, a right now transition. So I think it's more or less to put not only the patient and their family, but also uh, the medical facilities in a good place to be able to make sure that happens the right way. But again, I do agree with the placement of where they kind of tell you like, hey, do you want to be a donor? So my family kind of already knows that. Like Mr. Cook is, I'm a transplant recipient as well, and so I made it known early. Hey, whatever's left that's usable, give it to somebody. Because I was able to be blessed where somebody was able to donate to me. So um, the crazy part about that is that I was actually able to meet the other kid that received the other kidney from that same person right before we went in to our rooms and stuff like that to get ready for surgery. So it's,
Wow.
That's big. That's big, man.
so but again, yeah, it's definitely that needs to change. They need to figure out another way. Or if people have social workers, like my social worker, actually I just ended up getting a new one because the other one ended up transferring somewhere else. But he made sure that all that stuff was in order before he ended up leaving. Advanced directives and things of that nature that I think everybody needs to go through. If they have a social worker, that social worker needs to be trying to get that stuff in order now instead of waiting for something else to happen. Because I actually was.
Well, what if?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was
No,
gonna say,
you
what
good.
if we start? What if we started the conversation? I mean, initiative called "Start the Conversation" and talk about organ donor. At the table where, it's a tough conversation in the first place, but start an initiative with all families. Start the conversation. And talk about people's wishes and you'll get all kinds of people saying different things. You have your people saying, "Well, I don't want that because of this," and everybody. And I don't believe in pressuring anybody to be, what they want to be. But everybody is, their body's their body. It's their wish. But I still feel having the conversation will alleviate a lot of anxiety if something was to happen. So maybe that might be an initiative. Who knows?
Oh no, Dave, that's a great idea, Mr. Cook. I mean, anybody could end up in a situation like Sarah's sister Laura. I was halfway in that situation myself. A different diagnosis, but I had to have emergency brain surgery in 2010. I had a brain bleed caused by heparin while I was on dialysis. So that being a situation that you don't know how it could come out. You don't know if something goes wrong on the table. You don't know if you make it out. I was lucky. My grandfather had brain surgery, 4 or 5 years before I did, and he pretty much lost about 85% of his memory. He had to learn how to walk again on his own and things of that nature. So, um, but sometimes some people, unfortunately, like Sarah had to with her sister, they don't make it out those situations. And so, like you were saying, with that initiative and being able to start that conversation early, if God forbid something does happen to that person, hey, families want you to know, I want to be a organ donor. If they're younger than 18, of course. If you're older and they say, hey, I'm going to sign this to be a organ donor because this is what I want. These are my wishes that I want. And then also at the same time putting it in writing in the will, so that way there's nothing that can be said or done after that. It's on your license. You have paperwork showing that you said that you wanted to be it, as well as it being in writing from yourself and signed by multiple people. So that's man, that's a good idea, Ms. Cook. I think we should definitely look into that just for sure, because I think that it can help not just for us, but for other people out there, because we live in a crazy world. Things happen, and so I definitely think it's something that should be done. If it's not us, then somebody else that may be watching that wants to start it. But I think it's something that needs to be talked about in homes.
I mean, this is in Soda's. This is really in Soda's wheelhouse.
Definitely
start that conversation. That's why I just threw them alley oop to do it.
Right. No, definitely.
Yeah.
But we're all advocates, so at the end of the day, but I definitely think it'd probably be maybe more effective if it was done by Soda, because that's what they're already doing in the first
place. Yes, in their wheelhouse, man.
Sure, definitely.
To push something like that. It could be, who knows.
We'll have some follow-up conversations for sure.
Right. That's cool.
Definitely. So you mentioned earlier that you got a letter from the person that received the gift of life from your sister. Of course, we both, me and Mr. Cook also know that most of that stuff is probably redacted, for personal reasons and stuff in certain letters. Were you able to continue conversation and be able to meet this person, or has it just been kind of like a conversation-based relationship?
Yeah, we've been lucky enough to form a relationship with the liver recipient. I want to preface it by saying that it's not something that happens all the time. And so I don't want to set unrealistic expectations either, because I know there's so much emotion involved in this whole process. But we were lucky enough. Her name is Trish, and she lives in upstate New York. She's been a wonderful friend, of course, feels like part of our family as well. But a big supporter of what we do at Soda too. Her niece just started a Soda chapter, actually. And so that was extra special when we approved them.
Where did she start a chapter at?
Her high school in upstate New York. So we've got chapters all over, from Florida to Nevada to upstate New York. So she's such a special person. She's not only a special education teacher, but also owns her own gym. So she's helping people all the time with everything she does. And it's amazing to know that my sister is still, a piece of my sister is living within her.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great to hear. I think that's an important piece of the puzzle for a lot of us, is that a recipients are to be able to keep those people that may have given, or at least their families, I should say, to be able to say, hey, I'm not taking this for granted. I'm using it, the best of my abilities into doing things. And I also think that's where the Transplant Games come into play as well, to be able to show off that, hey, I'm using the gift of life that was given to me, to the best of my abilities, staying active, staying healthy, and so, Sarah, have you heard of Transplant Games before?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So I think that would be another place you may be able to do something as well to be able to promote your organization. I remember 2018 was in Utah. There was a lot of organizations and things that they had in the convention center that were promoting, or if they had books or something like that, they were able to get information to people. So just another way for you to put your organization out there. So
that's a great
Ms. Cook, you have any more questions?
I don't have any more questions. I'm pretty happy with everything. I'm just excited to see the reach, just like you said. Talking about the young lady in upstate New York. This the reach, and that's what makes me proud. I'm happy to hear things like that.
Definitely. Sarah, do you have any questions for myself or Mr. Cook?
No, I think it's been such a pleasure talking with you both, and I'd love to keep working together, regardless of kind of what types of initiatives it's on. I think what you guys do is incredible, and I know you have a symposium coming up that's going to really reach a lot of people, and so I'm excited to follow all of what you do and partner in this important work that we're all doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Definitely, we will definitely be keeping in touch with you and your organization. Me and Edward talked to Sarah last week before last. So definitely, why not? We'll definitely be keeping in touch with you as well. So, Ms. Cook, any last words?
No, just Sarah. It was a pleasure speaking with you on this platform. Looking forward to working with Soda and you somehow.
Likewise.
So, Sarah, usually this is how I usually end the show. If there's one thing that you would like for the audience to take from what you said today, what would that be?
One message that resonates with me is that no one's too young to make a difference, and you have to believe in yourself, be willing to take feedback along the way, but know that, for us, it started with just Soda National, this idea kind of that we could be national. And here we are, and we have chapters in many states across the entire country. And so just kind of believe in yourself and put the work in, and it will often pay off.
Awesome. I love how you guys manifested that. You said national, you kind of hesitant, like, no, national, and it happened in a big way. So that's big, okay?
Exactly.
Definitely. Well, Mr. Cook, I appreciate you being on again with us this week.
Thank you.
Sarah, I definitely appreciate you coming on to tell your story. Why not? Second chance collaboration with Soda National today. We'll see you guys next Sunday. Have a great day and a great week.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.